Me and my partner will now be presenting our ToK presentation.
For our real-life situation, in a school setting, the relationship between students and teachers are usually seen as an adult and childhood relationship, in which the child or a student in this case, is viewed as incompetent and unknowing of the real world. And meanwhile, the adult is viewed as being a mentor or a person who has experience throughout many real-world dilemmas. However, this increase in jurisdiction often leads to these power struggles between students, teachers, or school faculty, such as the principal or the vice, in which they all contribute to this debate, in which they all want to mention their own input into a solution, but in regard to a school-based matter. The student leaders of today are seen in the media and in the internet, in which their exposure is meant to ensure their voice is cemented into their community or society.
And so the different leadership positions that the students can have vary by school. Uh, Many of which either being in the classroom as student teachers or aides to the teachers, in the school sports such as being team captains or team managers, and also in extracurriculars or clubs such as being president of your science club or secretary of your math team. And so me and my partner both have experience being student leaders in our groups. First off, my partner being in the bachata team.
For the bachata team, in which relationships in the group in the bachata have created for positions and new roles for students to take, and was this creation of president or vice president or treasurer that takes the load off from the traditional teacher who usually is control of these positions, and a distribution of power creates for this equality as and teachers have created for like this further expansion of knowledge of this of dance and exposure.
And in the student voice committee, the club focuses on the entirety of the student and the voice of the student and being able to voice their opinions on certain issues and discussion at the school. Well, the teachers in the club are often limited to roles such as being sponsors or adult allies. And so the discussion in the group is heavily dictated by students, which creates this interesting dynamic in which their opinions, their voice is being heard by a school staff and have a direct impact on certain school regulations.
Our knowledge question is, how advantages are student advocates in school leadership positions when compared to traditional adult leaders? Our knowledge question is trying to mention how the difference in student leaders and are trying in their own opinions on trying to voice a solution to a school dilemma, in which directly relates to real life situations as it focuses on the comparison between adults and student leaders, and how students have given more are seen to be given more leadership position opportunities in more recent and modern times.
And so to combat this RLS and knowledge question, uh, we have split our presentation into two developments. The first of which tackle the area of knowledge of human sciences and the way of knowledge of emotion. And so our claim regarding this is that the relatability and the social and emotional relationship that student leaders can have with their fellow peers and students of the school can be very advantageous in promoting emotional buy-in and favorability towards their personal opinions towards school-based situations and issues. And this is seen as the view into the human sciences highlights that because students are so closely acquainted during their time at school, whether in the classroom, in the sports, or in different clubs, this can help create this strong emotional bond that would allow for the student leaders to be able to voice opinions that would then be favorable among the student body. And this is in direct contrast to adult leaders. And this is because the student leaders are able to have this friendly, sympathetic relationship with the student body, which would create a stronger obligation by a student body to try to follow or abide by these rules because they are being made by these student leaders, which they can personally connect with, while this might not be the case with traditional adult leaders. An example of this can be seen in the classroom setting, as some students may find it easier to ask for advice from other students inside the classroom rather than the teacher themselves. and this is because of this, as I mentioned, this strong sympathetic and emotional relationship that students have with each other, and this type of respect that they have because they can say that they face similar issues throughout their lives, or at the certain point of their life, while this type of relationship cannot be possible, or it's not possible between adults and students because of this strong age disparity in which adults and students might not have the same type of mutual respect for each other as tradition or as students, leaders, and other students might have. And so we also have a counterview towards this claim, as like our counterclaim states that the relationship between student leaders and the student body might become too friendly to the point where some respect is lost, and the students might not want to, or they might feel like they can elude certain stuff that's certain opinions or student regulation that student leaders put up because of this comfortability in this relationship, and this can be seen as the principles of respect and relationship are can become blurred in a way as friends, although having this strong emotional bond and respect that made them friends in the first place, can start to lose some of that respect over time because of this comfortability in the relationship, and this is seen as this can be seen as a student body might become too comfortable and might feel like they can be able to escape or elude certain regulations or certain rules due to their friendship with the student leaders. And an example of this can be seen in the job setting or job environments where there's a clear, strong subordinate and boss system, in which a common saying has been said that good bosses make bad friends and vice versa. And this is because the employees who form this friendly relationship with the boss the relationship might become too friendly to the point where the employee might feel like they can get away with certain stuff at work because of their friendship with their boss, while the boss on the other hand might might stick to dishonesty or lying to certain employees in order to avoid offending that employee and to ensure that the relationship is intact. And so, concluding this development, as you look at the first development regarding how students are able to sympathize with other students regarding certain issues and learning plans at school that is not possible between adults and students because of the lack of sympathy, it's apparent that there are varied advantages regarding social interaction and social relationships in the human sciences, and the student leaders' ability to be able to communicate with students on a platform that is unattainable by other teachers or adult leaders, and this can help make the claim solidified that student leadership is invaluable when deciding the course of route for the student body because of this strong relationship. However, the benefit of this student leader can also act as a potential disadvantage, as social relationships and sympathy that students share with each other might become too comfortable to the point where there is now exploitation or a lack of respect between student leaders and student body.
For our second development, it contributes to the areas of knowledge of the arts and ways of knowing of language, in which I claim that the creative production of student leaders, by enhanced ideas and communication skills, are more well conveyed to settle a school dilemma than a traditional adult. In which my claim is trying to mention how there is more and more students, in which each one has their own uniqueness of mentality that they bring into society. They all contribute their own way of thinking and their own way of processing a set solution or a set problem. Rather than an adult who usually is sticks to the one traditional aspect of solving a problem. With this, more and more student leaders have been are are have better and newer ideas of addressing a problem that is affecting their community. Usually, these aspects of solutions contribute to the different forms of arts by performing or literary arts or of way of a visual, in which they create a more renounced way of solving a school dilemma that might have been oversaw by a school adult. For example, in a classroom setting, there's usually more students than teachers. Usually there's up to 30 or 20 students to one teacher. Each student has their own unique way of thinking and processing knowledge that might not be traditional or might not be what the teacher's actually aiming to proceed with. However, in which case they all communicate their own standard and express ideals through different viewpoints, such as um, such as the topic of bullying, in which an art student might do a mural to voice out the issues of bullying in a way of not actually addressing the not addressing actual victims, but addressing the actual problem as a whole. Meanwhile, the others might do organize a poetry slam for the victims to express in the form of a literary art their actual um, negative effects that they express through bullying. And also, there might be a way um, of a riot or a rally to give the victims a place to express their own frustration and anger that they have had through the aspect of bullying. These new ideas have been thought out by student leaders to help broaden the scope of solution than just one mind. For my secondary knowledge question, what value does cultural experience in the arts bring when comparing student leaders and adults? And it is, and my other knowledge question is, to what extent are new ideas viewed to be better than pre-existing research ideas? My counterclaim is, an experienced adult leader may have experienced many dilemmas and therefore may have sought out to know how to deal with similar but new problems. In which I'm trying to explain how having an adult who has passed through these similar school perplexities may have already experienced similar problems that are faced today. In which case, um, it might not be the same issues, but might have a general shout out to a solution. For example, in a job setting in which there's an engineer who is an adult and has experience by through many forms of internships or background knowledge and education towards engineering, meanwhile might be susceptible to getting hired than a young adult who is barely learning about the subject. In which my second example might be of a teacher who has gone through college and is well educated, could be more well spoken out to um, different aspects of people than a student. For my conclusion is, looking at the arts conclusion, student leaders encompass creative ways of communicating set issues to their fellow peers and have ways of language that is better suited to express a solution than an adult leader. In such case, having an adult who has experienced similar dilemmas may be better than that might be better as a mentor. And for example, in our group in bachata, as there's the creation of e-board in which there's the student leaders in which they have their own way of learning than their traditional instructor, and this way of learning might be better suited to other students in the group and might be better able to process a faster pace of learning and understanding a set dance routine.
And so this RLS can also be expanded beyond the school setting, as school leaders are also encouraged to act within their community and on certain city levels. And a program that helps to solidify the student leaders is such a program, Chicago Scholars, in which me and my partner are both a part of, in which students are able to act as leaders in their communities and be able to speak their voice into certain citywide issues because of their spread out in the city. And so this same type of dynamic movement in which there is a disparity between the youth and elderly and competing for managerial and leadership positions can also be seen in the major sports in America, as younger and analytical coaches are increasingly being seen as superior and far safer choices when compared to the older coaches of the sport. And so to conclude this ToK presentation, with reference to two developments that me and my partner made towards the knowledge question of whether it's advantageous for student leaders in comparison to adult leaders, we can see that there are both clear advantages and drawbacks to unconventional leader positions that the student body holds in a school environment when compared to traditional adult leaders. Numerous examples, such as student leaders being able to act as a voice that is sympathetic and familiar to the students to help create a strong social relationship, proves one of the advantages, but one disadvantage can also be seen, such as how student leaders in the arts can have issues explaining certain topics that require certain knowledge that they don't possess yet, while on the other hand, adult leaders might have this certain knowledge because of their expertise in the real world. And so when reflecting upon the real life situation through all viewpoints, we conclude that the advantages of student leadership in school are very clear and apparent. And so students should be encouraged to act as leaders in the schools and to be able to bring many new viewpoints and provide input into many of the school issues, which would overall improve the environment of the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.